Greetings, fellow seekers of the unknown. Tonight I have a bone-chilling tale to share with you, one that will send shivers down your spine and leave you questioning the very essence of your reality. It was one of those rare occasions when my family had to attend a last-minute event, leaving me to fend for myself in our old Victorian house. The idea of having the entire house to myself filled me with both excitement and trepidation. As the evening descended, I settled into the living room, trying to distract myself with a movie. But the shadows dancing on the walls seemed to take on a life of their own, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The old house creaked and groaned with each passing moment, as if it held secrets from a time long gone. I tried to brush off the unease, assuring myself that it was just my imagination. But the persistent feeling of being observed lingered like an unwelcome guest. To distract myself, I decided to bake some cookies, hoping the warmth of the oven would chase away the chills. As I worked in the kitchen, the sound of footsteps echoed through the house. My heart skipped a beat, and I paused to listen. The footsteps seemed to be coming from upstairs, and the realization that I was not alone sent a chill down my spine. "Hello!" I called out, my voice trembling. Silence was my only response, and I nervously laughed it off as my imagination playing tricks. I continued to bake, trying to convince myself that the old house was just settling. But then the footsteps resumed, louder this time, as if someone was deliberately trying to make their presence known. Fear crept in, and I frantically searched for something, anything that I could use as a weapon. With my heart pounding, I slowly climbed the creaky stairs, each step echoing through the empty hallway. As I approached my parents' bedroom, the footsteps seemed to be coming from inside. I pushed the door open, my breath catching in my throat. The room was empty, and the footsteps had stopped. I searched every corner, my hands shaking, but there was no one there. The silence was deafening. Suddenly, the floorboard outside the bedroom creaked, and I spun around to see a flicker of movement. My eyes widened in horror as I caught a glimpse of a shadowy figure darting down the hall. "Hey, who's there?" I called out, trying to sound brave despite the fear that threatened to consume me. No answer came, only the distant sound of the front door slamming shut. Panic surged through me, and I ran downstairs, my heart pounding in my chest. As I reached the front door, the realization that the intruder might still be inside the house sent a wave of terror crashing over me. I knew I had to leave and find help, but the fear of encountering the intruder paralyzed me. I grabbed my phone and dialed the police, my voice shaking as I explained the situation. They assured me that help was on the way and to stay on the line. I hid in the pantry, my breath hitching with every sound. Minutes felt like hours as I waited for the police to arrive. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed through the kitchen, getting closer and closer to my hiding place. I held my breath, my heart pounding in my ears. The footsteps stopped just outside the pantry door. I could hear someone breathing heavily, as if they knew I was there. In that terrifying moment, the pantry door swung open, revealing a masked figure standing before me. I screamed, my phone slipping from my hand as the intruder lunged at me. But just as quickly as they appeared, they vanished. The police had arrived, and the intruder fled. I was safe, but the horror of that night would haunt me forever. From that day on, being home alone was never the same. The old house, once a sanctuary, became a place of fear and uncertainty. I learned that the darkness can hold unimaginable terrors, and that sometimes the scariest things can be lurking in the shadows of our own homes. It was a stormy night, and my family had to attend a sudden family event, leaving me home alone. I was no stranger to the house. We had lived there for years, and it had always been a safe haven. But that night, as the thunder roared and the rain pounded on the windows, an unsettling feeling crept over me. I tried to dismiss my unease, telling myself it was just the storm playing tricks on my mind. but as the night wore on, the house seemed to take on a life of its own. The creaking of the floorboards echoed through the halls, and every shadow danced in eerie synchrony. To distract myself, I decided to watch a movie. As I sat on the couch, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end, and I kept glancing over my shoulder, expecting to see someone there. My phone buzzed with a message, and I jumped at the sudden sound. It was from a friend checking up on me. I replied, trying to sound cheerful, but the unease still gnawed at me. As I settled back into the movie, I heard a faint tapping sound. It was like someone gently tapping on the window. I looked outside, but the rain made it hard to see anything beyond the glass. I convinced myself it was just a tree branch swaying in the wind. But the tapping persisted, growing louder and more insistent. My heart pounded in my chest, and I felt a sense of dread wash over me. I tried to ignore it, turning up the volume on the movie to drown out the noise. But just as I thought I could ignore it, the tapping changed. It became more rhythmic, almost like a knock on the door. I paused the movie, my ears straining to listen. The knocking grew louder, and I knew then that it wasn't the wind. Fear gripped me as I approached the door, my hand trembling as I reached for the doorknob. I opened it a crack, peering outside into the darkness. Rain poured down, obscuring my view, but I saw no one. I shut the door, trying to convince myself it was just my imagination. But then I heard it. A voice, faint but unmistakable, calling my name from outside. My heart leapt into my throat, and I backed away from the door. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice quivering. No answer came, only the sound of the rain and the distant rumble of thunder. I tried to tell myself it was just a prank, that someone was trying to scare me. But deep down, I knew it was something else. The tapping and the voice continued, relentless in their pursuit. I locked all the doors and windows, trying to shut out the terror that lurked outside. I called my parents, but there was no answer. As I huddled in my room, the sound seemed to grow louder, more menacing. It was as if whatever was outside was trying to get in, trying to reach me. The walls seemed to close in on me, and I felt trapped. Just when I thought I couldn't take it any longer, the sound stopped. The rain outside still fell in torrents, but the tapping and the voice were gone. I cautiously peered out the window, but there was nothing there. Relief washed over me, and I allowed myself to believe that it was all in my head. But then, just as I was about to go to bed, I heard a soft whisper coming from the hallway. Come out, wherever you are." My blood ran cold, and I knew then that the terror was far from over. I grabbed my phone and called the police, my voice trembling as I explained what had happened. As I waited for the police to arrive, the house seemed to come alive with sinister energy. The walls seemed to whisper secrets, and every shadow seemed to take on a life of its own. When the police finally arrived, they searched the house, but they found nothing. No signs of a break-in, no intruders. It was as if whatever had been tormenting me had vanished into thin air. I stayed with a friend that night, unable to set foot in that house again. To this day, I don't know what happened that night, but I know one thing for sure. There are some things in this world that we can't explain. Some horrors that lurk in the shadows, and some fears that we can never escape.